Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. Just so I can be sure you can hear me, can someone just pop something in the Q&A that says yes? Great, awesome, fantastic. So I'm Omar. I'm going to go through some LinkedIn material today that I know you'll find useful. A couple logistical things. You guys are all muted by default, so if you have a question, just put it in that Q&A chat room. It'll only go to me and potentially another organizer from USC if they're able to join. But that's kind of the only way that you can interrupt me. So I apologize if you have burning questions. I'd love to be interrupted, but I can't promise I'll get to it right in the moment. I'll be sure to check the chat pod after each section every few minutes. So with that, let's get into it. All right, so today I'm going to talk to you about the actual most useful MBA skill, which is using LinkedIn to navigate your career, both immediately after Marshall and for the rest of your career, really. And just really excited to do this, and even more excited that USC has made available to you a course that you can go through some of this content deeper and at your own pace. So who am I? My name's Omar Garrett. I'm in the top left here. The co-founder of LinkedIn Guys is Jeremy Schiffling. We are two tech product marketing dads who were bonded by our shared love for our kids, and yes, also LinkedIn. Not only did we run the student, new grad, and college business for LinkedIn for a few years, we've also both found or been found for multiple jobs on LinkedIn, including at LinkedIn. So we are true believers in the power and possibility of LinkedIn, the world's largest professional network. This program was originally born out of UC Berkeley Haas, where I got my MBA. And we're primarily working with MBA programs right now. You can see some of the schools we've been working with. But of course, today, we are excited to add UC Marshall to our roster. So in our work with students in schools, we've really landed on three core beliefs that we want to share with you. The first is that LinkedIn is actually the most powerful tool for the modern MBA job search. Forget anything else you've heard, forget resumes even, you need those to apply. But LinkedIn is the way that you're going to find and get found for your next job, ideally your dream job. Secondly, way too many MBA students focus on 80% of LinkedIn that actually drives no value. We waste way too much time on the stuff that doesn't actually matter. I'm sure you guys have seen all the lengthy lists of you should do this on LinkedIn. We've learned over time, and we'll share with you what actually matters on LinkedIn, what will actually get you a great job. And third, the only way to get students like you using LinkedIn is to show you the results right away. You are a discerning generation that can spot digital BS immediately, and you need to know that this stuff works. And we know that our approach does. How do we know that? Well, here's just a few of the offers that have been earned using our methodology. But why does this process work that I'm going to talk you through today? Well, it's because what we do is focus on what matters most, as I said, which really boils down to these three things. Number one, expanding your network in both a broad and targeted way. Number two, proactive outreach so that you can make the connections that you need to make to get warm leads into jobs. And thirdly, optimizing your profile and your presence on LinkedIn so that you can also get found passively. So there's a proactive and a passive piece to this that are really important. In each of the areas that I'm going to go through, we're going to share some foundational skills for each of them, as well as some more advanced or ninja black belt level tactics. because we know that you guys are more advanced LinkedIn users than the general population, or probably even most MBAs since you're at a top tier school. The question is, are you more advanced than the recruiters who want to find you? I'm just going to pause here real quick to see if we've got anyone from USC staff that I can promote to an organizer who can interrupt me if there are pressing questions. If there is, could you go ahead and put something into the chat? Can people still hear me? I see some comments about audio being spotty. I'm going to keep talking. Yes, you'll get a version of this deck, and yes, also the recording. Audio is spotty. All right, let me switch to a different audio input. Give me a second. Okay, and I see my phone is having problems, so I'm actually going to join via phone. Give me a second, I'm going to join via phone because my computer audio is not working well. Okay, how's that? Is that better? All right, great. I promise this will get better once we get through the technical issues. Okay, I'm still looking for someone from staff to promote. Let me find Victoria and then I will move on. Victoria, again, remember, please do not close this window or else you will end the session. Okay, I've made you an organizer. Victoria, do you want to?
Hi.
Hello.
Is that me?
Yep, that's you.
Oh.
Can hear you fine.
Great.
So everyone can hear you. You might want to go back on mute, but just unmute yourself if you want to interrupt me with questions that come up in the chat panel. Sound good? If you just go down to where you see questions, you can expand that panel.
Okay, so if somebody has a question, I'll just say something and you'll hear me?
Yeah, exactly. Just unmute yourself and interrupt me. But note that I'll also be pausing at different points for questions.
Okay, super.
Okay, so if you could go back on mute now, that'd be great. And I'm gonna go back to my presentation. By the way, I'm also gonna be mixing in some live demos to keep this interesting.
Okay, are you, it's being recorded and will we have a recording of it?
Yes, I'm recording this session.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. So moving on, the first component that I want to talk about is expanding your network. And what is this magic 500 number that LinkedIn pushes everyone to get to, right? When you get to 500 connections, it'll just show on your profile 500 plus. It's because that's the magic number at which the site has incredible value. It's where you're maximizing the power of network effects that you're probably learning about in B school. You keep building that web after 500, but beyond that, you really start to get sort of diminishing returns in terms of that network effect. So you never know, that one marginal additional recruiter that you connect to could be the one that helps you get that dream job. So really what's awesome about this is no matter what business school you go to, any size, any tier, or even if you don't go to business school, LinkedIn in many ways can be the great equalizer. You need to be thinking about building your network as broadly as possible, and ideally into different sort of industries and sectors, spaces and locations that you're not already connected into. You want to have a good, diverse network with lots of branches as opposed to a single dense cluster. And I recognize many of you are earlier in your career and this is a work in progress, but that should be the goal. Get to 500, make it broad. So how do you do that? The easiest way to get there is to start with who you already know. You never know who they might know. Here's some random people that I'm actually second degree for the most part connected to that are, you know, connections of my connections. And this is really important in the job search because I'm sure you've all heard 85% of jobs are found through networking. It's not who you know, it's who they know. And so again, you want to be building the broadest possible network. The way that you can do that quickly and easily is to import your address books. This is a tool right on LinkedIn, LinkedIn's networking page where you can just, connect page, where you can basically input your email and it'll find all of your contacts. It'll basically crawl your email for everyone that you've ever corresponded with. And en masse, you can email all of them to connect with you on LinkedIn. You can also do this with your phone contacts and or go through individually and de-check people you don't want the invite to be sent to. So do this right away. You can quickly get that connection number up and get those healthy, you know, network effects working on your behalf in a non-redundant network way. Sometimes MBAs can have a hard time with this. You know, my network is the friends that I have at school, but actually you guys have a bigger network than you realize. Think about peers, teachers, work, internships, volunteering, you know, contacts on your mobile, family, friends, and definitely all of the staff that work at USC that you've interacted with. Those are great nodes because they'll be connected to other USC students and grads throughout the country. And I just want to make a point here that hopefully has been clear at this point that in our view, there's really no reason not to connect very broadly. LinkedIn is a trusted, well-lit place. There's actually research that's been done to show that people are less inclined to lie in their LinkedIn profile than they are in their resume because it's public. And so, you know, my personal bar for connecting on LinkedIn is anybody who I substantively know, somebody that I know. It's a really, really low bar. And there's even more open networkers than that who will connect with anyone. Obviously, you want to be targeted in the way you grow your network, but I don't think you should be discerning, again, because of those network effects. So that's a foundational that's a foundational tactic to grow your network fast. A more advanced thing that LinkedIn's actually just recently rolled out, once you've sort of got your existing network set up, the easiest way to expand it, especially if you're not sure where to focus, is through a new service they've provided called Career Advice. It's been piloting in certain markets, but I believe it's rolled out more broadly than that. And you can just opt in to participate in this platform under your own profile view. It's a new dashboard. And this is just a way to find a mentor. And maybe it's somebody who, you know, is in the field that you want to move into. Maybe it's someone who is a potential hiring manager. And, you know, this is also just a good reminder to think about people that are in roles that you might want to be in as potential mentors. Do you play that student card and ask for informational interviews, especially if they are Marshall alums, and really think about, you know, a non sort of transactional way that you can engage with people to develop a relationship so they think of you before that job is even open.
So speaking about sort of warming up some connections, let's talk a little bit about the second important strategy, which is proactive outreach. So first, you're starting to build a bit of a network here. You're thinking broadly on how to do that. But unfortunately, despite your top tier MBA, most likely the job and internship offers aren't going to just come to you. Haas told us recently that it was about a 70-30 ratio in terms of their MBA grads finding jobs off campus versus on. And when I graduated from Haas 10 years ago, it was probably easily the reverse. Most people were finding jobs on campus. And this is even for more traditional industries. So what we're trying to do here is teach you how to fish. And once you've sort of done this stuff, you'll be seeing connections all across your top companies and starting to learn from others who have great profiles and great networks on LinkedIn that you can model yourself after. So this is sort of the first piece. Why is it important to do proactive outreach? Because this is the way you're going to find a job for the rest of your career. Foundational skill here, which I'll show you in a minute, is the alumni tool. This is a product that I helped build when I was at LinkedIn, and it's really the best kept secret and most valuable tool on LinkedIn for people like yourselves. And so as you can see here, I just screenshotted the USC Marshall alumni database. And what's great about this tool is a lot of this data is actually under a paywall for most folks to actually view, but we sort of hacked together this way of showing it that doesn't require premium accounts or any kind of paywall. So this is a great tool to see potential career paths of people who've gone to Marshall, where they geographically are, the industries that they work in, and you can do all kinds of targeted searching, which I'll show you in a second. But really, this is foundational, the alumni tool. And then when you're ready to really go after a job, you can start doing some more laser-targeted advanced searches. So that includes things like, let's say you want to work at SpaceX, and the quickest way in is to find a Marshall grad, right? Because you have that in common. So you can use Boolean searches in the search box on certain fields like company, school, and I believe title and maybe location as well. So here I just did a search for company SpaceX, school Marshall, and you can see two results that came up for me. Well, there's an awesome tool called Hunter.io where you can actually find the email address of anyone who works at basically any company. And I'll show you that as well. So now you've got a way to actually reach out to either of these two people, again, who you have Marshall in common with. There's also a bunch of filters you can apply on an advanced search. So here you can see I applied filters for show me people whose current company are SpaceX and went to the University of Southern California, and not necessarily Marshall specifically. And I got 154 results of people who are showing their current company as SpaceX on their LinkedIn profiles. And these are also part of your network, right? You've got your Marshall community, but you've also luckily got the broader USC community as well. And you can see all of these filters when you're doing an advanced search under by clicking all filters. It's much more than what's going to show at the top of your screen by default in terms of sorting by location, connection level, or current company. And I'll show you that now. Victoria, any questions before I jump into a demo? Okay, let's do the demo, and I'm sure some questions will come up at that point. All right, so hopefully you guys can still see my screen here. Yep. So the way to get to the alumni tool, which again is the way that I recommend you start your networking search on LinkedIn, your proactive network outreach to get warm leads, just go to linkedin.com/alumni. This is a URL that you kind of have to know to go to it because it's been buried a little bit in the top navigation. It used to be very easy to find, but just sort of bookmark that in your head, linkedin.com/alumni. it's going to default to the school that that I most recently went to since I logged in. So here we're showing Haas, but you can come over here to change university and actually browse by name and type in any school that you want. It's actually showing me a similar university is USC Marshall. So I'll click on that. By the way, the other way you can get to it is to just do a search here for, in the main search box for USC Marshall. And then you'll come down here to where you see the school page for USC Marshall. Now, some schools might not have a page. Some specific programs won't have a page, but usually business schools will. And so here's the University of Southern California page on LinkedIn. And if you click See Alumni, this is the other way you can get to the same thing that I'm showing here, that I just went to linkedin.com/alumni. So let's go through this and let me just show you some of the basic functionality here. So first of all, change university. You can, for example, search for your undergrad alma mater as another one of your networks that you can tap into. And what this is showing here is over 41,000 people who've come through Marshall. You can filter this by the years that they attended. You can filter it by when they graduated. Let's see, you want to see grads from the last 5 years, thinking that they're most amenable to outreach, but also maybe starting to get into power positions where they actually have a team they can hire. So these are the filters on the top here. And then the facets that are showing here are where they live. So, the majority of these folks look like they're staying in the US, where they work, so they're actual employers, what they do in terms of the function that they're in. And then if you toggle over here next, you can see what they studied, what they're skilled at, so skills that they're endorsed for, and then how you're connected. So 16 of these people I'm actually already first degree connected to. And what's awesome is it's not going to just show me these top 4. If you hit show more, it's going to default to, I think, the top 20 or 25 for each of these. So if I wanted to find people who live in LA, narrowing that pool to a third or a half of what it was, and let's say work at Wells Fargo, here with 2 clicks I've just narrowed down to 90 alumni who meet that criteria. And let's say I further want to know people who work in BD because I'm interested in BD. Here's 16 people who went to Marshall, and if you scroll down, you can actually see who they are. With a quick action to connect, if you have anyone in common, it'll show that. And you can also view their profiles and start to build a relationship from there. And later I'll talk about some cold outreach strategies that can help. But what's great is all these actual alumni results are here. This is basically mimicking the power of Recruiter, which companies pay $10,000 a year for a seat. And you can do this through this tool. So if I clear these filters, what's also great about this tool is not just razor targeting sort of the people that might be in the roles that you want to be in the location and the companies and potentially the functions, or maybe they're like you and have certain skills. It's also really helpful for, say, career pathing or planning or ideating, right? Let's say, oh, maybe I'm casually interested in marketing. Well, people who went to USC Marshall and work in marketing and maybe live in San Francisco, what kinds of companies do they work for? Well, unsurprisingly, Google, Apple, Facebook. And you can start to, get your lead list of target companies to go after this way. And you could do that for any combination of things, and you'll see how things dynamically update. Finally, if you're not seeing the specific things that you're looking for here, give me a second, Victoria. You can also search here in the search box for anything. Let's say you want to search startup. What this is doing is crawling all of those 42,000+ alumni profiles for the word startup, and you can see almost 1,600 alumni who have that on their profile. And so this search box can also be a really valuable way to search. Finally, if you're not seeing companies here by default that you want to, let's say you have a company in mind that you really want to work at, you can actually search for that here, even if it doesn't come up by default. Oh, that didn't work. You have to choose it from the dropdown. And here are the 159 Marshall alumni that are at Google. Now remember, this is how they're representing themselves on their profiles. And so, you know, it may or may not be as accurate or maybe more accurate than what's in the alumni database for your school. But this is what people are choosing to say on their LinkedIn profiles. Okay, I think I'll pause there and see if there are questions on the really awesome alumni tool. I see one question: is it better if we choose USC Marshall or USC generally? I would say start with Marshall. It seems to have a really large alumni base. I don't know how many students are in each of your classes, but that's where you're going to have sort of the most connections, closest affiliation, because you guys have gone through that experience together. But if you're not finding what you need, by all means, extend it out to USC. I get emailed all the time by UC Berkeley undergrads, and I'm more than happy to help them. Would you recommend connecting with people that went to your school, even though you never meet them? I think in that case, so for example, some of these folks, if I'm interested in connecting with them for potential jobs, the first thing I would look at is connections in common. So can I get an intro from the mutual connection that we have? If there isn't one, then you can send a connection request. But I think the ideal way to do that is to add, you know, some kind of personalized note in the connection request saying, you know, briefly who you are and why you're looking to connect. I generally will, as I said, I broadly connect with people, but I won't connect with someone that I don't know unless they give me a valid reason to do that. Hey, really enjoyed your presentation. Hey, I think that you looks like you have a really cool career path. I'd love to just stay in casual touch. Does this mean that 366 alumni work for Marshall after graduation? That's a great question. That is probably slightly inaccurate. What that most likely means is, yes, there's some that do, but really what that probably is people putting Marshall in the work experience section of their profile as opposed to the education, where it ideally should be. All right, I'm going to keep moving on. And again, Victoria, just interrupt me if you need to. So let me show you that email lookup tool that's pretty awesome and also a good thing to know about, even though it's not technically part of LinkedIn. If you just go to hunter.io, you can find the email address of basically anybody that you might want to hit up. So, you know, whether or not, let's be honest, not everybody checks their LinkedIn emails or has their email settings to not spam them all the time. So generally finding corporate emails may be a slightly more intrusive, but I want to show you how to do it in case you're not getting the response you want on LinkedIn. And so it's really simple. You just type in the name of the company you're looking for, and hunter.io tracks all of the domains for those companies. So in our previous example, we were looking at SpaceX, and here you can see the most common pattern is first.last@spacex.com. So in our original example, we could assume that Lorraine dot whatever, I forget her last name was, at spacex.com would be her email address. So that's just a tool I wanted to show you. Now I want to show you the advanced search capability, which I would say is the second best kept secret on LinkedIn, and really, really valuable to get super targeted in terms of your proactive outreach. And then I'll take a look at questions again. So the way to go to advanced search, to get to advanced search, is actually there's a bunch of different ways to get to it, but really the simplest way is just come in here into the search bar and just push enter or hit this magnifying glass. And it's going to bring up some default search. I don't even know how it comes up with this number of people, but really the filters that you want to pay attention to are up here at the top. So if you click all filters, which I showed you before, this is showing advanced search on LinkedIn. And this is, again, sort of mimicking Recruiter, as you can see, there's even a little merchandising panel here to get you to upgrade to Recruiter if you really want to add some additional, frankly useless for you features. And if you're doing a whole lot of this kind of searching, like if you work at the university, you might eventually hit a paywall. But I would say, I often get a question about, is a premium account worth it? I would say it's worth it if you're doing a lot of intensive searches in the middle of your job search, and you can even trial it for free for a month, and just do it that way. But search to your heart's content until you get asked to pay for a premium account. But basically, there's all kinds of filters that you can add here. So you might want to see people who, maybe you have a good feel for people that you're first degree connected to, but less so with second. So maybe you check first and second. Let's say that you want to be in the San Francisco Bay Area. You can search for any company here. Let's try Facebook. And then down here is where you can also do what we were doing earlier in the alumni tool and search for USC Marshall. You've got to pick it in the dropdown because it's all standardized that way. We don't really care about names or anything like that. You could check a specific industry, past companies. I'll talk about a way that could be really interesting and useful. But let's say you only want to know people who perhaps are vice presidents. And I have not done this search, but I'm going to put my faith in LinkedIn and see what we come up with. So let's apply those filters, of course. Let's clear these filters and go, okay, now we're clearing those filters. Let's try again and do first and second degree. This is probably because I didn't go to Marshall and don't know as many folks there, but let's try Haas and see what comes up. Actually, I can choose Haas over here. Oh, and I just remembered that was because I chose a specific company, which is probably what narrowed my options. But let's just see who from Haas in the San Francisco Bay Area might have a title of vice president. Of course, they might also have VP, so we could do an OR operator there as well. But here we're getting 540 results of people who have vice president in their title and went to my alma mater. And obviously, you could get as detailed with these filters as you want. It's again, just a really, really powerful tool. You can search for any company that you might be interested in. You could do it by industry, if that makes sense. You might say, oh, I just want to see Marshall folks in the New York area, and so on. You can even search for people who are interested in volunteering, if you want to do that. One quick thing I want to point out that past companies can be useful for, when you get pretty far in your job search, let's say you get an informational interview or even get into the interview process and an HR screen or a recruiter has made contact, you can use past companies as a way to actually do a little bit of vetting. So, if you are in contact with, say, Google, you search for Google people who went to your alma mater or your current school, you can actually see, I guess I've still got vice president here, but here are people who have worked at Google that are vice presidents and went to Haas. And these are people that I could actually reach out to get a really candid take on what it's like to work at that company at Google. And you might actually get deeper insights than what you might find online or even on Glassdoor if you just make a personal connection and say, hey, I'm considering working here. We both went to Marshall. Tell me about what it's really, really like. So that's the alumni tool and advanced search, two main proactive outreach tools I wanted to show you, as well as hunter.io. All right, I'm going to come over to the questions here. And again, Victoria, feel free to chime in if there's stuff I'm missing. Natalie, to clarify your, go ahead.
Is it okay to just text you, or do you want me to actually speak up? Because I don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, speak up.
Oh, Okay, I've been just texting you privately.
Oh, you? Oh, yeah. I'm not seeing those. I'm sharing my screen and presenting. So yeah, go ahead and interrupt.
Okay.
But I'm looking at the questions now. I think I'll address Natalie K's first. And her question, she asked the earlier question about choosing USC Marshall versus USC. I thought she was talking about in the alumni tool search. She was actually talking about in the education section. Yes, I would list USC Marshall in the education section of your profile. Kathy has a couple of questions. The contact email listed on LinkedIn usually work. There's sometimes people put their real, emails on there that they check frequently. Other times people don't. So that is not necessarily always a reliable method, nor is in-mailing, because that's basically just going to ping whatever email they've set. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to show you that Hunter.io tool. And Kathy also makes a point about premium is nice if you want to know who's looking you up. I actually believe that the who's viewed my profile feature is still a free feature. The only requirement that you need to do to be able to see who's viewed your profile, which I agree is an interesting thing if you're looking at specific employers to see, oh, they've actually checked me out after I submitted, for a resume drop. The only requirement there really is that you have to actually make yourself visible for that. And once you've done that, then LinkedIn will allow you to see who's viewed your profile. But sometimes you'll see people who viewed your profile and it won't tell you who they are. That's because they have sort of gone into stealth mode, and they themselves are unable to see who's viewed their profile. So that's a cool feature. I'll talk a little bit more about premium a little bit later. All right, let me get to one more question before I move on to the next section. Is there a tool similar to the alumni one that provides some functionalities that Navigator provides? I think you're talking about Sales Navigator. If you are, I would not worry about that tool for your job search purposes at all. That's really more of a tool for salespeople to find the right prospects within mostly a B2B environment where they're selling to enterprises. If you're referring more to the recruiter functionality, I'm going to actually show you a little bit of that in a second, but the advanced search comes really close to that, at least for your purposes. Recruiter just really kind of gives it a facelift and makes it really easy for recruiters to reach out, but that's not a need that you have as a job seeker. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on. So we talked about a couple proactive tools, right? Growing your network, finding the right people to potentially get warm leads with. Those are proactive tools. Once you're really cranking, there are ways you can put LinkedIn on autopilot to attract opportunities, kind of in a way that no resume, on your hard drive ever could, because LinkedIn is your resume that's always on. I think of it as like, it's 24/7, it's always partying. So we've talked about proactively finding. Now let's talk about passively getting found. And really, this is all about profile optimization. And this goes for whether you're a passive job seeker or a really active one. And just to be clear, focus on this part last. First, build your network. First, find some targeted people to reach out to. Because, especially for career changers, your profile is not going to be that helpful since you don't have that track record that most recruiters will want once you're, if they're looking for you. So, and a lot of times MBAs want to make a bit of a career change or a pivot. Make sure that you're building out the network so it's sort of there when you need it. And then you can think about these ways to get found and sort of, if you're in the chameleon category. If you're a hedgehog and you want to keep doing what you've been doing, just maybe at a higher level or a slightly different role, say maybe engineering to product management, this is something that you want to focus on for sure right away as a more quote unquote experienced hire. So a foundational skill here is, okay, go ahead.
There's just a couple of questions. And also, am I the only one that can be unmuted? Because some people wanted to unmute and they couldn't.
I can selectively unmute,
Oh, okay.
but I'd prefer that I mean, there's like over 100 people on this call, so I'd prefer that we use the chat window and you be the person to read questions, if that's okay.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Sorry to interrupt.
Is that the question, or should I keep going?
There are 2 questions. I didn't know if you wanted to wait till after you're done with this section.
Yeah, let me keep going, and perhaps I'll address them.
Okay,
So
great,
it's a really foundational, important thing to understand how recruiters search, right? And really, this boils down to 2 things, sort of gaming the algorithm and gaming the human being. And so really, this is what a recruiter screen is going to look like. First things first, they're going to search on 3 key things: job title, as you can see in the left rail here, job title, location, and skills. If they're getting really sophisticated and taking their time with it, which many recruiters don't, let's be honest, they have a lot of stuff to do and not a lot of time to do it. They might add stuff like past companies. I only want to see people who worked at Facebook, and education. I'm only recruiting from these specific schools. But also make note of what pops here in the search results. As you can see, it's name, photo, right? Degree of connection, which is just sort of a source of validation. Is this person sort of close to my network, already in it, or maybe second degree ideally? And then current headline, location, industry, and basically your most recent 2 jobs. Again, another source of validation is these potential shared connections. So that's like the 3-second scan that you'll be lucky enough to get from a typical recruiter. So we have to use this sort of shortcutty behavior that they do to our advantage. One other thing, you don't just have to think like a recruiter, you have to think like LinkedIn, the business. LinkedIn is a business, and they make the majority of their money off of selling the recruiter product and company pages, so a company presence on LinkedIn, to companies. And so as you can see here, there's 4 really quick filters that they can apply with 1 click at the top. And those are, you know, the number of search results, who has connections with the company, who might have applied in the past. But this one right here that I've highlighted, engage with your talent brand, that just means, are they following your company page? That is a simple action that will actually show up on your profile as well, that you should always do for every company that you might even be casually interested in. There's no reason not to go through and follow every company that you may be interested in. Because what if a recruiter clicks on that as a way to filter out, you know, people who are not serious about their company? You don't want to be filtered out in that case. Sure.
I think somebody's asking something pertinent to what you just said. As a career changer, would you choose the industry you're currently in or the industry you want to change into?
Yep, I'm going to talk about that, but I think industry, as well as even things like your headline title and your location, my advice is to always be aspirational about those things. What do you want to do? Where do you want to be? What kind of title do you want to have? Because remember, this is the way that recruiters are going to search. So that's what I mean about sort of gaming the system. Some people may have a level of, you know, unease with that, but there's ways that you can do it, right? A headline might be, you know, former product manager, aspiring, you know, product marketer, and USC Marshall student or something like that, right? There's ways you can do it, but I would recommend that you choose industries, titles, even locations that are where you want to be, not necessarily where you've been if you're a career changer. Okay, let me keep going. I know there's going to be more questions, but this is kind of a long section I need to get through about how else you need to optimize your profile. So we talked about optimizing for basically both man and machine. For man, it's photo and that headline at the very top. Who are you in a few words? And the photo is actually really important. I know I've talked to many recruiters who've said, if there's no photo or if it's not, a professional one, they just discard that whole heap of people because they don't, they're people too, and they just don't see humans. Humans are drawn to see other human faces, ideally smiling. And so get that profile up there. And then in terms of optimizing for machine, the algorithm, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but it's all about getting keywords, strategic keywords that they're searching for. Again, making sure you have as many connections as you can to increase the likelihood that you are first or second degree to a potential recruiter or hiring manager. And then there's also some SEO stuff you can do, which I'll talk about. So foundational skill, connections, always connect directly with recruiters. I was talking about, ideally being second degree with some of them by connecting broadly to people they might be connected to, but why not connect directly to them? Then you'll be first degree and already super validated. The worst thing that can happen is they'll reject your connection, right? So my recommendation is to do that search for title recruiter and see who comes up, connect directly with them. Keywords. This is really important because people skim. Your headline and your summary should be explicit, again, about the job you want, not necessarily those that you've had. Because the headline and the summary below it are character limited, the algorithm gives special priority to those sections. So it's the headline and the summary section where you really want to make sure you have the right keywords, as well as peppering them into your experience and skills section. But again, really most important in the headline and summary. And people who have used specific keywords for jobs that they want to go after, and LinkedIn says get 40 times more profile views than those who don't. How do you know which keywords you want to be using? Look at sample job postings for jobs that you might want to apply for and see how they describe the skills required of those jobs. The other thing you can do is search for alumni or anyone really who is in a job like that and see how they describe themselves in terms of the skill sets that they have and the sort of projects and jobs that they've worked. Not to beat a dead horse with the photo, but it's really important. It should be a headshot of you alone with a genuine smile and dress for the culture you want to be in, right? I used to work at Apple, and if my profile photo had a suit and tie, that wouldn't have flown. Hoodie, maybe a little bit too casual. And as I mentioned, recruiters often discard people without a good quality photo. You're 13 times more likely to be viewed by a recruiter if you have a good photo. And these are all people I pretty much worked with at LinkedIn, so unsurprisingly, they have great photos. Headline, we talked about key tenets being a keyword-laced, function, some passion or humanity, and if you can or want to, or if you think it helps your case, brand drop. So in that, using these criteria, the gold medal goes to Tony, who's got all three of these elements. Sarah gets the silver, and Emily gets the bronze in terms of making sure that that headline really pops, both in terms of its keyword ability, and if that recruiter is skimming it, you pop out with a profile photo and with a little bit of a human sort of touch to it and a bit of a narrative arc. You got to have both the keyword to catch the machine and the passion to catch the human. And then the advanced skill here that is also some semi-new feature on LinkedIn is to toggle on that you're open to opportunities. This is like a bat signal to recruiters that you're open to opportunities. You can do this on your profile dashboard. You can even specify exactly what you're looking for in terms of roles, titles, locations, and at one point, this was actually also a really simple one-click search filter for recruiters and the recruiter products. And I know it's still something that they search frequently on. So just on your profile, when you see this, toggle that over. And I don't think there's any reason why anybody should not have this on, even if you're in very satisfied in your current job, why not always be open to hearing from recruiters? And you can even say, you know, the type of work that you're looking for, full-time, part-time, internship, sort of project-based. But I don't think there's any reason not to do this. One thing I have noticed is that this tends to get automatically turned off every couple months. So watch your profile and also watch your email. They'll send you a notification that it has been turned off because they want you to sort of restate and renew your interest for recruiters so that when they're searching on this, they know that you're legitimately on the market. And another advanced skill is let LinkedIn do some of its automated magic and hard work for you. You guys might not know this, but LinkedIn has actually gone through a process of acquiring many of the job boards that are out there. So they're scraping jobs from all over the web. And it's actually become a really great job search tool as well. So do a search for something that you might be interested in. And then you can just save that search and set it to send you an alert either daily or weekly. And you can choose the way that you want to get notified. And many jobs now actually on LinkedIn have an easy apply button that allows you to just share your profile as a way to essentially apply or start the application process with that company. One other last thing you might see when you're viewing jobs on LinkedIn occasionally, there will be, it'll show you the poster, and oftentimes that's the recruiter or even the hiring manager. That is a great way to make that connection and reach out to find out more about the job. Okay, so real quick, profile checklist to kind of review how you stand out to get found by an algorithm and a human on this sort of living resume that is LinkedIn. Can the algorithm find you? Keywords in the headline, summary, and work experience, connecting with recruiters or connecting to people that they may be connected to, which basically means connect as broadly as you can. If you're in the tech industry and you want to move into retail CPG, you better be starting to connect with some people in that new industry. And then of course, will the recruiter pick you? Headshot, headline that shows what you're looking to do, but also a bit of that passion and humanity. And then the summary, you want to be filling it with keywords, but also provide a bit of a narrative arc to your experience. What have you done? Who are you professionally? And also making sure those keywords are in there as well. And you can look at my profile if you want to see what I think is a decent example of that. I talk about my work experience, what I'm passionate about, and then I basically have a paragraph that just lists a bunch of keywords for those types of searches that might come up in terms of skills that I have. Okay, I want to do a quick profile review with you guys. And this might be a little bit difficult with people on mute. We could also take this time for you to look at your own profiles, but before we go to that sort of hands-on piece, let's pause for a minute, see what questions have not been answered. It is, we have gone for about an hour now, so we can keep going. Okay, I'm back in the chat here, and Victoria, you can help me if there's anything that is really pressing.
I think there's some questions about how to keep certain information private so that people don't know that someone is looking for a job. And then there are LinkedIn skills.
Yeah, on that open to opportunities toggle that I showed you, LinkedIn says at least that people at a current company you might work for will not see that. So they've taken pains to hide that. But it's really just something that recruiters can see and search on. And I believe you actually have to have the recruiter product to be able to see that. It's not like you can go to someone's profile and see that they're open to a product marketing role.
Okay.
But they turn that off for recruiters at your current company. Mm-hmm.
There's a question about, should the summary be in first or third person?
I've seen different ways of doing that. Personally, I think first person is just a little bit warmer. Yeah, third person to me feels like, a generic bio that you're sharing for a conference that you might be speaking at. I would go with first person, but it's really just personal preference. I don't think that's going to change much in terms of the algorithm. It may change a little bit in terms of the human.
Okay.
I see a question about a search for job title accurately matching. Maybe I can address that one.
Yeah.
So the question is, if your title is something like product manager intern, when the recruiter searches product manager, will they find you? Yeah, they will. They will. It's the string product manager that they're likely searching on, and as long as you have that string, you know, even if there's a wild card, even if there's something after it, that'll still work. And so I think that's a really, if you happen to have an internship in the field that you want a career change into, that's a great thing to list as your title, as your headline. What else, Victoria? I see a bunch of questions here. I just want to pick off the you know, the most relevant.
Yeah. There was something about differentiating between legitimate recruiter outreach and a scammer message.
You know, my philosophy on that is make yourself open to opportunities, connect with recruiters, and if you get to a point where you are just inundated with career spam or, you know, job opportunities, then you can change that. But my guess is that that would be a nice problem to have as an MBA student. I also think that, you know, this is a website for all of you who are into tech and or have come from that world. You can just test things and, you know, A/B test it, change stuff every week. Try one headline and see what kind of outreach you get. Try something different the next week and see what happens. You know, obviously there's peak seasons where recruiters are looking for internships or full-time hires, and your career staff can help you with that. But I think, you know, my preference is always to like fill the funnel as much as possible, and then you can sort of decide what is worth responding to. But you know, you can always change that. Kathy made a point that she even came across a job today that was not on the company website, but was on LinkedIn. I've seen that as well. So thank you for pointing that out. And I want you guys to think of LinkedIn as a job search board as well.
By the way, this is great. Thank you so much. We're
thank you.
A lot. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of other
premium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see a question about premium. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Basically, my takeaway for premium is it's not worth it unless you are doing really, really heavy searches and you want to trial it for, you know, 30 days. But I'll show you some of the things that premium allows you to see both on a company page and on a specific job.
Standard cover photo versus another photo. Changing career paths. There's a couple of questions about that.
Oh, the cover photo. So the horizontal, I think that's referring to the horizontal background image that is now standard on LinkedIn, just like on Facebook and Twitter. Honestly, I think that's super weird. I don't know why LinkedIn did that, but I would change it to something custom, even if it's just communicating, you know, sort of visually communicating like a location that you want to be in, or maybe some kind of industry specific thing that, you know, sort of gives that visual cue. But I would change that. Just find some stock image or something at worst. The separate job finder app. No, sorry. What was that?
No, go ahead.
Okay, let me answer this one, then I'll go back to you. There's a question about should we download the job finder app? So LinkedIn has a pretty popular jobs app now for mobile. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth it given that LinkedIn is a tried and true place to find jobs now. I don't know a whole lot about it. That was a relatively recent launch since I left, but I know it is always charted very high on the App Store. So if you're looking, if you want to engage with LinkedIn specifically around that purpose, definitely give it a shot. Anything else for right now? I've got about 10 more slides and another demo as well.
Something about adding a resume for recruiters to see. Is there a way to do that?
So you can add any kind of you can really add anything to your profile or attach it to a specific job that you've had in your experience section. You can add PDFs, you can link to YouTube videos, you can add, PNGs of maybe a graphic file you created or a project that you've completed. I don't recommend attaching your resume, using that to attach your resume. To me, that's overly redundant, and actually your LinkedIn profile should probably have more than your resume on it. What I recommend in your experience section is, three bullets minimum of what you did, what you accomplished, obviously with some goals, and with some, concrete achievements, and then also providing some narrative to that. So, that you can't really do that on a standard resume, but there's no character limit for the experience section of your profile. And so blow that out a little bit, and talk about really what your job was beyond your accomplishments, which is really what a resume is for. But I don't think there's any reason to attach a resume. You may get asked that once you get into the application process, that again, you can start sometimes with the easy apply on LinkedIn, but generally that's sharing the profile, as LinkedIn has been trying to, articulate to recruiters that the new resume is a LinkedIn profile, which I think more and more companies are buying into.
Two more questions. I don't know if you want them now or later. One is, let's
take one more.
Whichever one you want. One is, what do you do if you want to change career paths? And then another one that's been asked twice is, how do we boost our skills and endorsement numbers? And what's the best way to group them so it highlights the most relevant ones?
Okay, so career paths, I think we sort of talked about. It's all about positioning yourself for the job you want, not the job you had. You do that through keywords in strategic places. You do that through your headline. You do that through your location. You do that through your volunteer experience, by the way, which recruiters have. LinkedIn did surveys showing that recruiters, I think 75–80% of recruiters view volunteer experience as legitimate work experience. So that's a good way you can sort of show substantive something in a new industry or role. Another way that you can do that is through projects or clubs that you're doing at school, which are, again, just having completed an MBA, you'd be shocked at the way that some of my classmates got internships and jobs just by saying, hey, I took this class and I got really excited about it, or I was the president of the marketing club, or I helped put on this conference. These are all conversation starters that show you're actually a legitimate career changer. But really, you want your LinkedIn profile as much as possible to look like what the recruiters are going to search for to make that career change. I know that's difficult, and maybe a little bit hard to do, but that's, again, if you're optimizing for algorithm and human, that's the way that you have to do it. And that can take a lot of coaching and just figuring out sort of the right line to walk. In terms of skills and endorsements, I don't think that those really matter too much. I mean, you can be endorsed for a bunch of random things that aren't even skills, like nonprofits, and LinkedIn doesn't. They're starting to now, but historically they have not had a good way of discerning whether it was a former manager that has endorsed you for a skill, which is really valuable, versus like your mother. So to me and to recruiters, I don't think they matter much. Yes, they can search on them, but really it's more important that those skills are showing up as keywords in the headline, the summary, the work experience, because they're going to show up there in their skill search, and that's really what matters more. There used to be a way that you could manually input skills and be endorsed for them. I believe you can still do that, but I think I'm like maxed out on mine, so I don't know for sure. You may have to have people just proactively endorse you for certain skills if that matters to you. And so I would just start with a classmate or a career services person and say, hey, can you endorse me for this? Then you'll have that skill as what we call a pill in that section, and then others can add to that and sort of plus one it. And they'll even, you guys might have seen this, but sometimes when you're on your own profile, you'll see a pop-up that says, while you're here, do you want to endorse so-and-so for for so-and-so skill. And always do that, because reciprocity, is nice, and they may well go on and endorse you. What I think is way more important than skills or endorsements is recommendations, because that's just a validation from people who you've actually worked with in a narrative context. A recruiter won't give that any time of day unless they're actually deeply diving into your profile. But I don't know if you remembered seeing on the recruiter view that I showed, when you actually look through the results, you can start to see snippets of recommendations. And when they click into your profile, it's nice to have. So the general rule we like to say is try to get at least one recommendation from every job that you've had. And that goes for internships as well. I think there can definitely be a point of like too much that is diminishing returns. Unless you were in a job for many years, I don't think you need more than 2 or 3. But it's always nice to have at least one for every place you've been. Again, just for that sort of recruiter validation. You got to think, another way that recruiters think is, what will I get in trouble? How can I not lose my job? And they're looking for ways. They're basically looking for safe hires. That's why I say have keywords for the things they're searching for. And they're looking for people that are known and validated. And that's by having connections in common or being directly connected. And they're also looking for people who, can otherwise be validated, which recommendations, more so than skills or endorsements, because those can be gamed, really can help do. Okay, I think I'm going to keep going. So I'm not sure how best we want to do this, but I want to do a quick hands-on thing. This is one of your classmates if you're a second year, Alex. And I figured we could just take 5 minutes right now to take a look at his profile if you have your computers. And you can see his URL is up here. It's linkedin.com/in/alexlee327 if you want to go to his profile. Alternatively, you can also take this time to just look at your own profile or pair up if you're in the same room, and just think through some of the elements that we've talked about in the profile checklist. And really look with that lens if you're doing the things that are optimizing your profile for the algorithm and for the recruiter. But maybe I'll just pause for about 3-4 minutes, let you guys take a look either at your own profile and think through some of this, or at Alex's, and then we'll do a quick debrief on Alex's profile from my perspective at least. And feel free to put comments on either yours, your partner's, or Alex's in the chat window. Things that he's doing well, things that could be improved upon, or things that you're noticing on your own profile. All right, let's do about another minute. Kathy, thanks for putting some thoughts in the chat. All right, let's come back together. Can somebody just say yes in the chat if you can still hear me? All right, cool. So does anybody want to share anything that any like sort of newfound observation on their own profile if that's what you did? Just type something in the chat. All right, well, you can still do that, but let's move on to talking about Alex. And there's some really good observations in the chat, including some things that I had sort of noticed. First of all, also not sure what the background picture is. There's a few different questions, and apologies to Alex if you're in the audience, but you're getting some free profile help here by a bunch of smart people. So first of all, I assume that this background is maybe somewhere in Los Angeles, but with that and with his location set as Greater LA, he's really communicating I'm an LA person, right? And meaning that's where I want to be, and won't be of interest to any recruiter who's searching for a job that's not in LA. So that was pointed out. Profile photo, we can definitely do better than that. I don't know, somebody in the chat pointed out it's a wedding photo, looks like it might be, but there's too much stuff going on in the background. It's not a headshot. I don't know what the pink flowers are, but it's just a little too distracting. And it's also overly formal. Don't feel like you need to, have a suit and tie unless it's really the industry norm. If you're going into investment banking, you might want to do that, but for that to be a wedding photo is maybe not the ideal way to do that. One thing I haven't really mentioned yet, although I alluded to SEO, search engine optimization, is you should all be creating a custom URL for your LinkedIn profile. And this is something you can use anywhere. You can use on Twitter, you can use it on your resume itself, but if you go to the settings on your profile, you can actually all create your own custom URL. It'll just be linkedin.com/in/whatever you decide. Mine is /in/O Garriott, just my first initial last name. He's actually gone ahead and done this, which is awesome. And there's probably other Alex Lees out there, but why add this 327 stuff? If you really wanted to get sophisticated about it, and I don't know how much this will help in search indexing, but he seems to be into accounting, why not do Alex Lee _ accountant or something like that to sort of, give yourself a little bit of an extra boost in SEO. But that's something you guys should all do. Other folks have pointed out the headline. His headline is student at University of Southern California. Marshall, that's great, but he's graduating in the spring, is his second year. What do you want to do? Tell us what you want to do here. Tell us what you feel like you're well positioned to do. And I can't tell if he wants to make a career change or not, but just to say you're a student is not sufficient. And you can say that, by all means, that is what you are. You can say that, but add some more context here. I circled third degree. I'm not critiquing him for being third degree, but he's in California where I am, or at least was until I recently moved, and goes to a top tier business school. Yes, we're in sort of different fields, but I would hope that someone like that would probably be more like a second degree connection. He's doing great on his 500 plus connections, but I just worry there may be, specific to an industry or even a location. And then the other thing that a few other folks pointed out as well is he has a really great narrative in his summary, but where are the keywords? I see accounting, I see audit, but I don't see much else other than that. I get to know him as a human, which is awesome, and I don't want to underplay how important that is. But I also want to see things like, have prepared financial statements, conducted, audits, balance sheet preparation, whatever the keywords are for the job he wants to go into. I need to see those in here. And actually, I've only done a snapshot of his profile here, but this is his entire summary. So we need more. And just remember, you're lucky if you get 5 seconds and a recruiter clicks on you. At top right here, you're going to see his most recent employer. That's just a default. And it seems like this is a job he has while he's in school there. And that is great, but maybe consider not listing it if that's not the first job you want to show up there. And that would be the same for like an internship. If you think your prior job to your internship is more applicable or gives you more, cachet, then you might actually not want to list your internship. I'm not saying don't do it, but just recognize that that's the trade-off, because it'll show up here at top to the extent that people will look at that. For anyone who looked at his actual full profile, he doesn't have a whole lot of information in some of his job experience. Remember, you want to have more than what's on your resume. Bullets for what you accomplished, but also a bit of an explanation for what your job actually was and what you did. And then again, he doesn't have the one recommendation per position. That's just the extra validation. Any other comments on this or observations? What do you think, Victoria? Alex is actually an undergrad. Oh, well, my bad. Well, then in that case, he's pretty far ahead.
Yeah, it's impressive. 500 connections. I guess somebody asked about the background photo. Yes or no?
Yeah, I think we talked about that with the horizontal image. Yeah, I think you should have something cut. Okay. Yeah, I think you should have cut something custom there rather than the default. There's also a question about a certificate. If you have a PMP, should you add that to the title behind your name? Honestly, I think that's a little bit. I think it's a little bit cheesy when people do that. I've seen people who do multiple. I don't even think you should do that when you get an MBA. These are, you guys are going to be at the, you're the cream of the cream, but it's also, a fairly common degree. And, honestly, I wouldn't do it unless you were like a PhD. In that case, I might not even advise it. Keep it simple. Question about like how far back you should go with your profile and removing jobs. So, there's a flip. That's sort of the other side of the coin to the fact that LinkedIn, allows you to, your profile can be as long as you want, right? Versus a resume where you generally want to, keep it tight and short. I think that you should only list jobs that are relevant to the sort of the professional arc that you want. It's the story you want to tell. So I can't answer that question for you, whether you should go back 10 years, but there's certainly no arbitrary cutoff that people are going to stop, looking at jobs that old. I think probably your career officers could give you better advice on that than me, but what I would say is, make sure it's sort of relevant to the overall narrative you're trying to convey. I certainly don't list jobs from high school, but I do list some internships I had in college because they were in marketing, which is the field I'm in now. Yeah, I mean, background photo, just a ton of questions about this. Don't stress about it too much. I mean, it's not something that's going to show up in the initial recruiter results. It's just something that people who are actually viewing your profile see. And to be honest, I think most people don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. I just don't want you to have the stock generic thing. I want you to show that you have given some love to your profile, and it's just a way to convey that more than anything. cityscapes they may be cheesy, but it's sort of the easy default if you know you really want to be in a place. I don't have any other really clever ideas, but do some stock image searching for industries you might want to be in, or, you know, even while you're a student, maybe you could show a little USC pride and do something like that. Certificates you can add under education, yeah. And I believe there's also a section, no, actually, yeah, put it under education. And I don't think you can edit the previous employer display at the top right. That's why I said you may not want to list your, you know, you may want to be choosy about who you list your previous employer as, so that, you know, so that it shows up there at the top right. But it's not do or die. You know, that's people are going to pay, and the algorithm certainly is going to pay way more attention to, again, your headline, your summary statement, and then recruiters are going to be searching on your location. All right, going to keep moving on here. Thank you for that awesome feedback and profile review. Make sure you're looking at your own profile or partnering up with someone who can do that kind of review for you, given what we've learned. All right, so a couple quick sections at the end here, just in terms of sealing the deal and interview prep. So how do you sort of close the deal? LinkedIn is actually a great resource to help you, you know, go into your interview with a lot of great information that may set you apart. There's the company page, which I'll show you in a second, and which I talked about all of you should follow the companies that you're interested in potentially working for, any potential company you might want to work for. There's also a product called SlideShare that you may have seen. It's kind of just a repository of presentations where people have done a lot of cool things, like a lot of business school projects too, but here's a screenshot of someone who did a SWOT analysis of Facebook. You can actually gain a whole lot of insights and knowledge from what other people have done on a company you might be talking to. And then LinkedIn Elevate is just a feed where you can view or be served a ton of professional content in fields and industries that you choose, or from companies that you choose to follow. So I'll show you that in a second. Also, you know, LinkedIn's a great way to get to know even more about the team. So table stakes, you absolutely have to do this. I hate it when I'm interviewing people who don't do this. Read, you know, check out the profile of everyone who is going to be on your interview panel. This gives you not only a way to make some possible real connections with them on, you know, whatever they've listed on the profile. Maybe they share a school with you, they share interests, they worked at a similar place, whatever. But also it'll cut out those, you know, those annoying for interviewers questions that take up time, like, you know, where did you work before this, and what is your actual job here? You should know that stuff going in by checking out their LinkedIn profile of every interviewer. But what I'm showing here that's more an advanced tactic is if you go to their profile and you look at their activity, you can actually start to get a sense of everyone who's interviewing you, almost kind of how they think, what they care about, what they're working on, by seeing the things that they're posting, by seeing the things, it'll even show you the things that they liked, and maybe check out a few of those same articles, and just giving you more insight into who they are and things you could potentially bond on and what they care about. That's actually a pretty new feature as well on LinkedIn. I want to just show one sample for cold outreach, because this is another thing that students often wonder about. How can I reach out to people? Let's say that I'm trying to warm up a connection and I just don't know them and I don't have a shared connection. This is an email template that we sort of created that has about a 2/3 success rate of getting a response. And really what it is warming up a cold lead by, first of all, picking the right person, right? Explaining why they are the person that you're reaching out to and why the company specifically. So I'm using the SpaceX Lorraine example still. Clearly state, what you've done and why you're asking for for a connection or an initial chat or meeting. Play the student card if you have to. I think people will always give preference to that. While you still can do it for sure. And also play to people's vanity. We found that it might surprise you that the most popular feature on LinkedIn when I worked there was who's viewed my profile, because people just want to know that, right? People are vain. So you can play to that by saying something like, oh, I'd love to chat about your amazing career path and, how I might follow in your footsteps if you really want to go overboard. And then just make your ask clear and that you won't waste their time, right? 20-minute phone call. Would love to just get a sense of who you are, what your team's working on. So just a suggestion for cold outreach with the goal of making this a warmer lead. And then last sort of section here is about gauging fit. So one thing that LinkedIn now has that you can find is average salaries for different types of jobs and different experience levels and locations. This is user input data similar to what you might find on Glassdoor. So if you want to see this, I believe you have to put in your salary at a job you've had, and it could be anything. But you can see this kind of data now on LinkedIn. So once you actually have the offer, you can have a little bit of leverage to know, well, hey, they're kind of underpaying me given my location and education level, or maybe it's a great deal and I should run with it. And then, as I sort of talked about earlier, do a past company search in that advanced search filter to see, to get the candid take on what it's like to work at a company. You can search for people, for example, who worked at Uber in a product role and also went to Marshall. Here's a guy that is now at Facebook, but maybe he'd be willing to tell you, has Uber moved on from its, scandals, and is it a good place to work now, right? This is kind of like a background check that you can do using advanced search. And then, of course, you can be searching on filters including title and school. So I'm going to do just a quick demo of a company page to show you what I was talking about, and then we'll wrap with some final questions. So here's the Uber company page. I just found this by searching for Uber, and one of the top results is the Uber company page. This is a product that LinkedIn sells to companies so they can sort of manage their employer brand. And here, there's a couple things that anyone's going to see, no matter what, whether you have a basic or premium membership. For me, the most valuable is jobs that we talked about, sometimes show up on LinkedIn first even, and then the connections that work there. So these are people that you already have access to get in the door. They've got their fluff around what it's like to work here. But here you can see 534 jobs recently posted. And then let me show you some of the insights that they also offer. You're looking at things like, how big each of their locations are, who's at which level, and so on. But where it gets really interesting is if you start to view some jobs. So, and this is where you're going to see some of the premium facets come into play. And you can sort of gauge for yourself whether this is worth paying for premium. And I don't know why this is not wanting to take me to jobs. See jobs, come on. All right, let's try this again. So again, we're just searching for, let's try a different company. And here's the company page. Stock snapshot. So here's some of on the company page itself. This is what was not loading a minute ago. You can also see some of the premium features here, the growth that the companies actually experience based on who's adding them to their profile, the average tenure, so when people stay and leave, distribution among different functions, whether those functions have grown or not, new hire data, senior management hires, notable alumni, job openings by function, So to the extent that that stuff's really useful for you, to be honest, I don't think it is, at least in your initial like search phase. But when you get into viewing jobs, some of this stuff is pretty cool. So they're hiring a ton of people. Let's see what this product marketing manager for WhatsApp is all about. So I'm looking at a specific job now on LinkedIn. It's showing me someone we have in common that can refer me to increase my chances of getting an interview, and you can quickly ask for a referral. This right rail is super interesting because you might have noticed there was people also viewed other companies when I was back on the Facebook company page, and those are the ones you'd expect, right? Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, usual suspects. But here, it's actually showing me jobs that people also viewed. And here's where you might find some, some types of roles and companies you hadn't even necessarily considered, oftentimes smaller. Twitch, Square, Udemy, Chegg, LinkedIn, Lending Club. So check out that right rail. Then when you're in the job, Premium will give you a little bit of intelligence about how competitive an applicant you are. Again, who knows how useful this is. This is just based on people who have applied through LinkedIn and have sort of initiated that process. So, they're telling you basically how competitive you might be. Oh, I'm in the top 10% of 101 applicants. I guarantee you they've had more than 101 applicants, but those are the people who've sort of gone through the process on LinkedIn by clicking apply and starting that way. And often that'll just take you to their own site to start that process, but it's tracking that link and assuming that these people are actually applying. It'll show skills that the job lays out and whether or not you have them. Again, viewing these sample jobs is a great way to start to build out your own profile and making sure you have those skills on your profile. And I just realized I definitely should have social media marketing as one of my skills. I never thought to say it that way because it's social media is on there. And then who else is applying in terms of their seniority level, what kind of education do they have, where are they coming from, and just a little bit more about the company. It's showing you basically the same view we just had from the Facebook page, but just for WhatsApp specifically. So just wanted to show you a little bit of what I find most valuable about Premium, aside from that ability to not have limits on the search when you're doing that advanced search. And again, just to reiterate what a great tool that is and how you get there, go up to the search box and just push enter, and then you can start to get into all filters here and get really targeted. All right, let me go back to my deck. And that is all that I have. So with that, I think I'll take any final questions. Also wanted to just point out that as you get to your black belt ninja level, USC has been gracious enough to buy a course that we've created to walk you through some more of these topics in depth at your own pace. And right there is the link to access the course for free. They've already paid for your seats. So bit.ly/Marshall-LinkedIn. And then if you have any other questions or ever need to reach us, our information is there, and happy to be a resource for you guys, and just wish you the best of luck. So with that, any final questions that we should address?
I just wanted to say thank you again. That was amazing. It really highlighted all the things that I need to do, everyone needs to do, and very informative. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no, it was great. There was a question above about the people that if you have a job and you don't want them to see what it is that let's see, can your current job see your headline as well? Can you change that? Basically, people who don't want their current job people to know that you're looking.
Yeah, there's only one headline. LinkedIn had talked about a feature like that where you could sort of have different versions of your profile you could show to different people, but that's not a feature they've ever rolled out. So yeah, only one headline.
Okay.
Sorry about that. But again, test it, try different things.
Okay. I don't know if this was answered. Shasha said a question. If I have a oh no, that was not it. It's a different one. How do you edit the previous employer display on the upper right? Did we talk about that? Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah, I don't think you can edit it. I think you just have to, it'll just automatically pull who your last employer was. But also remember, on the recruiter view, they're seeing your current job and your past, they're seeing your last 2 jobs very prominently in their search results. So, you do want to be a little bit strategic about which jobs you list as your, last 2 positions. I'm not saying don't list them, but just think about how that shows up in search results, whether it's relevant to the job you want to have next.
Okay. Somebody had a specific question about their own profile. I don't know if you wanted to answer stuff like that.
Is that Yasser's question? Or?
Yeah. Social impact
strategy. Yeah, I mean,
social.
Yeah, I think this may be instructive for other people, because really where this gets valuable is as you workshop it in your own profiles and figure out the best way to walk that line we were talking about with your headline. So Yasser's question was, is it better to write in my headline, social impact strategist or master of social entrepreneurship candidate class 2018? And hopefully by now, you guys have taken away that probably there's some combination of those two that you can use. So I like social impact strategist. That'll come up nicely if people are searching for the term social impact. I don't know that strategist per se is a term that recruiters would be searching on, but again, this is where you want to look at sample job profiles and even sample job postings and sample LinkedIn profiles to see what kinds of titles people are hiring for, and also say that they are. Maybe it's just social impact strategy or social impact strategy consultant. But you can also combine that you're also a current student and soon to graduate or had just graduated. I think that's perfectly fine. I find the term social impact and social entrepreneurship a little bit redundant, but I think you should feel free to do that. If you look at my profile, you'll see basically my current title, and then I just chose to use a little, I'm not sure what you call the character, but like a separator that's like a vertical hyphen. And after my current title, I say tech marketer for good, right? So my title is senior director at Salesforce, and then tech marketer for good. And if I were a student, I might do the same thing and say, USC Marshall MBA student as well. But remember, they're going to see that. Recruiters are going to see that you're at Marshall because education is showing up prominently on that top part of your profile and also in the search results. So don't feel like you have to mention it. It's not as important as listing the aspirational job title in your headline with the right keywords.
I noticed. Yeah. I was wondering if. Oh yeah, he says thank you. It's not possible to friend you or to add you, correct? We can just message you. Is that how you set up your profile?
So LinkedIn uses the verbiage of connecting, right? So you're connecting to people.
Right, not friends.
Right. Another benefit of premium is that you get, I think, 50 in-mails a month to people that you aren't necessarily connected to. So anyone you're first degree connected to, you can message them directly. But if you're not connected to someone and you want to try premium for a month, go nuts with cold emailing people because you do get an allotment of that. There's also a new sort of like chat feature on LinkedIn. They're trying to be like Facebook. And the idea is like a recruiter could reach out to you in real time. Let's make the in-mails a little bit less formal by just having chats. And when you're on LinkedIn, you'll see sort of like a little green light and a chat window in the bottom right if anyone has messaged you. But I don't think most people are paying too much attention to that. It's sort of just a way to respond to messages. So I don't know if that answered your question, but the first action that you want to do is initiate a connection request to somebody, again, with a little bit of a reason why they should connect with you, who you are. And then from there, you can message them further once they become a connection. Either that or asking for an intro from a shared connection.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Phil asks a question. You mentioned we will receive the slides by email. Thank you for your time and informative session. So
no problem, Phil. Yeah, we'll get a version of these slides to you guys.
Okay.
I'm not sure how we're doing on time, but maybe just one or two more.
Okay, there's only a few more. Carla says, where can you go to customize the job openings LinkedIn alerts you about?
To get the job alerts. So once you're on the jobs page here, let me show you. So up here, if you click jobs in the top nav, and you actually just need to like do a search. So, well, I actually already created a search, so let's do one for, I don't know, product marketing, Los Angeles. Okay, congratulations. So you've got, LinkedIn's always changing their UI, but don't be fooled by it. All the functionality is always the same. So basically, here's the over 5,000 results, and you can scroll through and you can see quick little snapshots. If you just click, it'll change over here. And then what you want to do up here is, well, they actually did change this. There used to just be a way that you could save that search. Oh, here you go. So they've created a new visible button here that just says create search alert at the top. And that's where you can sort of specify when you want to get it. You might start daily and see if you get overwhelmed. But another thing you can do is apply some additional filters to really focus it in. Let's say that like you only want certain companies, for example, you could do that and then save that search alert. Hopefully that answers your question.
Okay. I had a quick question about people that I have connected with. If I like some of the articles that they write, does that have any value at all in terms of them noticing me or having stuff that I've looked at? Is that important at all?
They'll get a notification. So up here and this where this little bell is, these are your notifications. So like I posted this article and I can see people who liked it, see people who viewed my profile, people who like comments. So yes, they will get notified. Whether or not people actually check that, I'm skeptical. So I would say if somebody that you're really wanting to build a relationship with is posting stuff and you like, it can't hurt to like it, to just, on the off chance that they are checking that. But I think what's more valuable is what I talked about earlier, where you can go to a specific person. Let's go to Farouk, and you can actually see his recent activity here in a brand new module they've created, articles and activities. So things he's written, articles, and activity, which is like honestly a little bit stalkerish, but hey, this is LinkedIn. It's not Facebook. And these are just articles that he is, that he's commented on, or maybe even just liked. It's showing me that he liked an article. Cool. Well, that shows me he's interested in that. So I think it's more, this activity stuff is more important to get a sense for who you're trying to target as a warm lead, or potentially even who's interviewing you, less important for, building a relationship.
Okay.
All right, so I think we'll wrap with that. But really appreciate all the great questions and interest and energy tonight. And I'll be in touch with your staff about next steps. But don't forget, you've got this course available to you, and make full use of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Best of luck to you.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.